The endless siege. The galaxy had been burning for 800 years. Admiral Thane Cortez stood before the massive observation deck of the UES Defiance, watching distant explosions paint the void in brilliant colors. The battle between the Coalition fleet and the Cathari Empire raged just beyond Neptune's orbit, close enough to Earth's solar system to make every human military officer nervous. The Cathari ships moved like predators through space, their dark hulls absorbing light while their quantum cannons tore through Coalition vessels with surgical precision. Each Cathari destroyer was worth 10 Coalition ships, their technology centuries ahead of anything the allied alien species could produce. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Coalition flagship," reported Communications Officer Taylor. "They're requesting immediate assistance." Cortez remained silent, studying the tactical display. The Coalition was losing badly. Again. Commander Xylos of the Vorthan Republic had sent 14 requests for human intervention in the past 3 hours. Each message grew more desperate. The Cathari Empire had conquered 60% of the known galaxy through sheer technological superiority. Their quantum warfare systems could phase through traditional shields. Their ships could fold space-time to appear anywhere on the battlefield, and their weapons existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They were, by every measure, the perfect war machine. "Admiral," Lieutenant Chen called from her station, "the Coalition flagship is breaking formation. They're heading directly for us." Cortez activated the main screen as a sleek Vorthan vessel approached. Commander Xylos appeared on the communication channel, his reptilian features showing the strain of constant warfare. The Vorthan scales had dulled from their natural emerald to a sickly gray, and his golden eyes held the desperate look of someone who had watched his civilization slowly die. "Admiral Cortez." Xylos spoke in accented but clear English. "My people are dying. The Cathari have broken through our defensive lines at the Gamma sector. Within days, they will reach the Vorthan homeworld." "I'm sorry to hear that, Commander," Cortez replied carefully. "But humanity has maintained strict neutrality in this conflict." Xylos leaned forward, his clawed hands gripping his command chair. "We offer you technology beyond your imagination. Quantum drives that could take your ships to distant galaxies. Energy weapons that could power your entire civilization. Medical advances that could eliminate death itself." The bridge fell silent. Every human officer knew what such technology could mean for their species. Earth's population had reached 12 billion, resources were strained, and they had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel through crude fusion drives. "And in return?" Cortez asked, though he already knew the answer. "Join our coalition. Help us destroy the Cathari Empire before they consume everything in their path." Cortez looked around his bridge at officers who had become like family during humanity's short journey to the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen, his science officer, was only 28, but had already revolutionized human understanding of quantum mechanics. Engineering Chief Rodriguez had personally designed the improvements that made human ships surprisingly durable. Captain Marcus Webb, his intelligence officer, had an uncanny ability to read alien motivations. "Commander Xylos," Cortez said finally, "humanity appreciates your offer, but we decline." The Vorthan's scales shifted to a deeper gray, a sign of shock among his species. "Admiral, you do not understand. The Cathari showed no mercy. They will reach your system eventually." "Perhaps," Cortez agreed. "But if we're going to face them, we'll do it on our own terms." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Within hours, the Coalition fleet had withdrawn, leaving the solar system to whatever fate awaited it. That fate arrived sooner than expected. 3 days later, Cathari scouts entered the outer solar system. Their ships were unlike anything in human databases, seeming to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere. They moved without visible propulsion, their hulls shifting between solid matter and something that sensors couldn't properly identify. War Prime Kestar commanded the Cathari expedition from the bridge of his flagship, the Quantum Servant. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, his crystalline exoskeleton reflected the ship's lighting in patterns that indicated his emotional state. Currently, those patterns showed mild curiosity mixed with predatory anticipation. "These humans are primitive," reported his tactical officer, a younger Cathari whose crystals still held the blue tint of inexperience. "Their ships use chemical rockets and basic fusion drives. Their weapons are projectile-based with crude energy supplements." Kestar studied the tactical display showing human defensive positions throughout the solar system. Yet they refused the Coalition's offer of advanced technology. "Curious. Perhaps they are simply ignorant of the threat we represent," suggested the tactical officer. "Perhaps," Kestar mused, "or perhaps they are more clever than they appear. The Coalition has survived longer than expected by learning to adapt. Begin the siege protocols. I want to understand these humans before we eliminate them." The Cathari began their assault on the outer colonies first. Mars fell within hours, its defensive grid overwhelmed by weapons that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The lunar bases lasted slightly longer, but were eventually consumed by quantum fire that burned through their shields as if they were paper. But something strange happened during each battle. Human ships would fight desperately, inflicting minimal damage on their attackers, and then suddenly vanish. Not destroyed, not retreating, just gone. Their energy signatures would simply cease to exist, leaving no trace of wreckage or escape pods. "Where do they go?" Kestar demanded after the 15th human ship disappeared mid-battle. His science officer, an ancient Cathari, whose crystals had turned deep purple with age, studied the sensor data carefully. "Unknown, War Prime. They do not fold spacetime like our vessels. They do not phase into parallel dimensions. They simply cease to register on any known spectrum." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Elena Vasquez coordinated humanity's defense from the Global Defense Command Center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains. The massive facility hummed with activity as thousands of officers worked to track the Cathari advance. "Status report," Vasquez called as she entered the primary command center. "We've lost contact with the Mars colonies and Luna base," reported General Harrison. "The Cathari are maintaining positions throughout the outer system, but they haven't advanced toward Earth yet. And our missing ships." Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her quantum analysis station. "All crews are accounted for, Admiral. Operation Silent Running is proceeding as planned." Vasquez nodded grimly. The plan had been controversial from the beginning. When faced with an enemy whose technology was centuries ahead of their own, humanity had chosen an unconventional approach. Instead of trying to match Cathari firepower, they would use their greatest advantage: adaptability. Captain Marcus Webb materialized on the main screen via quantum communication link. His face showed the strain of his current mission, but his eyes remained sharp with intelligence. "Status report, Captain," Vasquez ordered. "I'm currently aboard the Cathari flagship," Webb reported quietly. "My capture was successful. They believe I'm an unconscious prisoner, but Dr. Chen's quantum transmitter is working perfectly." "What have you learned?" Webb's expression grew serious. "Their technology is even more advanced than we suspected, but it has a weakness. Every system is connected through quantum entanglement networks. If we could access their primary quantum core, we might be able to understand their technology well enough to develop countermeasures." Dr. Chen interrupted from her station. "Marcus, are you saying you want to access their ship's central computer?" "Not just access it," Webb replied. "I want to copy it. Everything. Their entire technological database." The command center fell silent. The plan was beyond audacious. It was nearly impossible. But Webb had volunteered for what everyone assumed was a suicide mission, and he had already achieved more than anyone thought possible. "How many other crews are in position?" Vasquez asked. 17 ships have been successfully captured, Chen reported. Each crew is transmitting intelligence data through quantum-encrypted channels. The Cathari can't detect our communications because they exist in quantum superposition until observed. Admiral Cortez, monitoring the situation from his flagship hidden in the asteroid belt, reviewed the incoming intelligence reports. Each captured crew was providing valuable data about Cathari technology, tactics, and most importantly, their strategic thinking. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Vasquez appeared on the screen, her expression grave. "Thane, our deep space sensors have detected a massive Cathari fleet approaching from the galactic core. War Prime Kestar has requested reinforcements." "How massive?" Cortez asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. 3,000 ships, enough to sterilize every planet in the solar system. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Humanity's entire fleet consisted of fewer than 200 ships, and most of those were currently captured by the enemy. "Time to arrival?" Cortez inquired. 72 hours, Vasquez replied. "Thane, if we're going to implement the final phase of Silent Protocol, it has to be now." Cortez looked around his bridge one final time. Dr. Chen was making final adjustments to her quantum communication array. Engineer Rodriguez was optimizing the ship's power systems for maximum efficiency. Every officer was focused on their task, ready to risk everything for a plan that had never been tested. "All stations, prepare for Silent Protocol Phase 3, Cortez announced. "Dr. Chen, initiate quantum entanglement with all captured crews." "Quantum entanglement network established," Chen reported. "All 17 crews are online and ready." "Captain Webb, are you in position at the Cathari quantum core?" Webb's voice came through clearly despite the impossible distance. "Affirmative, Admiral. I'm directly connected to their primary computer system." "But sir, there's something else you need to know." "Report." "The Cathari Empire isn't just conquering the galaxy. They're studying it. Every species they defeat, every technology they encounter, they add to their collective knowledge. They're not just warriors. They're the galaxy's most advanced researchers." Dr. Chen looked up from her station with sudden understanding. "Marcus, are you saying they've been learning from us too?" "More than that," Webb replied grimly. "They're fascinated by human unpredictability. War Prime Kestar has been deliberately prolonging this siege to study our behavior patterns. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The Cathari weren't just trying to conquer humanity. They were trying to understand what made humans different from every other species they had encountered." "Admiral," Chen called urgently, "I'm detecting massive quantum fluctuations from the Cathari fleet. They're preparing to advance on Earth." Through the observation ports, distant stars began to shift as the Cathari reinforcement fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 3,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet, arranged themselves in perfect formation. War Prime Kestar stood on his bridge, studying the primitive blue world that had captivated his attention for weeks. These humans were unlike any species the Cathari had encountered. They learned rapidly, adapted constantly, and showed remarkable resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. "War Prime," his tactical officer reported, "the reinforcement fleet has arrived. We are ready to proceed with planetary bombardment." Kestar remained silent, his crystalline features reflecting the light of distant Earth. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans had been too easy to capture, too predictable in their desperation. Yet their technology showed signs of rapid advancement that should have been impossible. "Delay the bombardment," Kestar ordered. "I want to understand these humans before we eliminate them." His science officer approached cautiously. "War Prime, our analysis of the captured human crews shows unusual brain activity patterns. They appear to be in some form of enhanced conscious state, not the unconsciousness we expected." Kestar's crystals shifted to orange, indicating heightened alertness. "Enhanced consciousness." "Explain." "Their neural patterns suggest they are actively processing information at an accelerated rate. It is as if they are learning from their captivity rather than simply enduring it." For the first time in centuries of warfare, War Prime Kestar felt something he had almost forgotten: uncertainty. These humans were not behaving like any species the Cathari had previously encountered. They seemed to be turning their defeat into some form of victory. "Prepare for immediate interrogation of all human prisoners," Kestar commanded. "I want to know what they are really doing aboard our ships." But as his tactical officer moved to comply, something unprecedented happened. Every human ship that had been captured suddenly reappeared on sensors, but they were no longer empty. They were fully crewed and operational, positioning themselves throughout the Cathari fleet in perfect defensive formations. Captain Webb's voice echoed throughout the Quantum Serpent's bridge, speaking in flawless Cathari. "War Prime Kestar, this is Captain Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Fleet. We need to talk." The human solution. War Prime Kestar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 17 human ships had materialized from nowhere, each one positioned at critical points throughout his fleet. Impossible. The Cathari had perfected warfare across 11 dimensions, yet these primitive humans had somehow outmaneuvered them completely. "How did they breach our quantum containment fields?" demanded his tactical officer, crystals flashing red with alarm. Before Kestar could respond, Captain Marcus Webb appeared as a hologram on the bridge. The human looked tired but confident, and he spoke Cathari with perfect pronunciation and cultural inflection. "We never breached anything," Webb explained calmly. "We were never actually captured. What you've been holding are quantum projections, sophisticated enough to fool your sensors, but empty of actual consciousness." Dr. Sarah Chen's voice joined the transmission from her station aboard the UES Defiance. "War Prime Kestar, my name is Dr. Sarah Chen, Human Quantum Research Division. While your forces were studying our projections, we were studying you." Kestar's crystals shifted through multiple colors, displaying confusion and grudging admiration. "Explain." "Every human ship you thought you captured was actually a sophisticated recording device," Webb continued. "We've been documenting your technology, your tactics, your command structure, and most importantly, your motivations." Admiral Elena Vasquez appeared on a secondary channel from Earth Command. "War Prime, we know about the Cathari archives. We know that your empire doesn't just conquer species, you preserve their knowledge. You're not destroyers, you're collectors." The bridge of the Quantum Serpent fell silent. No conquered species had ever understood the true nature of the Cathari Empire. They were indeed collectors, gathering the technological and cultural achievements of every civilization they encountered. The warfare was merely a method of acquisition. "Furthermore," Dr. Chen continued, "we've discovered why this war has lasted 800 years, when the Cathari Empire could have ended it in decades." Kestar's crystals flashed deep purple, the color of ancient knowledge and carefully guarded secrets. "You know nothing of our purposes." "We know everything," Admiral Cortez interjected, his voice carrying across quantum space from his flagship. "The war is artificial. Both the Cathari Empire and the Coalition leadership have been prolonging it deliberately." Commander Xylos appeared on yet another channel, his reptilian features showing shock and betrayal. "Admiral Cortez, how are you communicating on Cathari frequencies?" "Because we've spent the last month learning their technology while they studied us," Cortez replied. "Commander, your own Coalition Council has been selling weapons to both sides. The war continues because it's profitable for everyone in power." The revelation struck like quantum lightning across the assembled fleets. Coalition ships began breaking formation as crews realized the implications. Cathari vessels held position, but their command structures were obviously in chaos. Captain Webb materialized physically on the bridge of the Quantum Serpent, stepping through what should have been solid bulkheads. "War Prime, we need to show you something." Kestar's tactical officer raised his quantum disruptor, but Webb raised his hand peacefully. "I'm not armed. I'm not even entirely here. This is another projection, but I wanted to deliver this message personally." "Deliver what message?" Webb gestured, and the bridge's main display activated, showing data streams that made even the advanced Cathari systems strained to process. "This is what we learned from your archives. Every species you've conquered is still alive. You've been preserving them, protecting them, keeping their cultures intact while the galaxy destroys itself in endless warfare. The data showed hidden worlds where extinct species thrived under Cathari protection. Technological marvels that had been destroyed were actually being maintained in vast preservation facilities. The Cathari Empire wasn't conquering the galaxy, it was saving it from itself. The Coalition knows this. Dr. Chen added from her quantum link. Their leadership has been using the threat of Cathari conquest to maintain control over their own populations, while secretly collaborating with your preservation efforts. Kestar sank into his command chair, the weight of exposed truth pressing down on his crystalline form. You understand the complexity of our situation. We understand that you're trying to preserve galactic civilization, while everyone else destroys it. Admiral Vasquez confirmed. But there's a better way. Engineer Lisa Rodriguez appeared on the communication network, her hands dancing over holographic controls. War Prime, we've developed something during our month of study. We call it the Unity Protocol. Explain. Using modified Cathari quantum cores, we can create a galaxy-wide communication network that operates on pure information exchange rather than conquest, Rodriguez explained enthusiastically. Species can share technology, culture, and knowledge without anyone having to die for it. The engineering schematics appeared on every ship's display simultaneously. It was elegant, efficient, and completely revolutionary. Instead of conquering civilizations to preserve them, the Unity Protocol would allow voluntary cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Commander Xylos studied the data with growing amazement. This would make the Coalition unnecessary. Species could communicate directly with each other, and it would make the Cathari preservation imperative unnecessary too. Webb added, civilizations could preserve themselves through cooperation rather than conquest. War Prime Kestar rose slowly from his command chair, his crystals cycling through colors that hadn't been seen in Cathari culture for millennia. Hope, wonder, possibility. You propose to end 800 years of warfare with a communication system. We propose to end 800 years of unnecessary warfare with understanding, Admiral Cortez corrected. The fighting continues because nobody talks to each other. Everyone assumes the worst about everyone else's intentions. Dr. Chen activated the Unity Protocol demonstration. Across space, quantum fields began harmonizing, creating connections between ships that had been enemies moments before. Cathari crew members found themselves in direct communication with Coalition officers, sharing technical data and cultural information in real time. The effect was immediate and profound. Vorthan engineers began collaborating with Cathari scientists to improve quantum drive efficiency. Human medical officers shared their research with alien doctors who had been treating the same diseases for centuries. Knowledge flowed freely between species that had been trying to destroy each other for generations. This is remarkable, Kestar admitted, watching his crew work alongside former enemies. But how do you prevent the system from being weaponized? Captain Webb smiled, the expression translating clearly across species barriers. That's the beautiful part. The Unity Protocol only works when participants are genuinely cooperating. Any attempt to use it for deception or manipulation causes the connection to fail automatically. It operates on quantum entanglement principles that require emotional honesty, Dr. Chen explained. You can't lie through a quantum-entangled consciousness link. The system itself enforces truth. Admiral Vasquez appeared on the main display, her expression serious but hopeful. War Prime, the choice is yours. You can continue the preservation protocols through conquest, or you can help us build something entirely new. Kestar looked around his bridge at crew members who were already engaged in animated discussions with Coalition and human officers. 800 years of warfare had been motivated by the assumption that different species couldn't coexist peacefully. The Unity Protocol was proving that assumption wrong in real time. There are those in both our empires who profit from the current conflict, Kestar warned. They will not accept this change willingly. Then we'll change it anyway. Engineer Rodriguez declared with characteristic human stubbornness. We've got 17 human crews who've been studying Cathari technology for a month. A coalition fleet that's tired of dying for corporate profits, and a Cathari expedition that's just discovered they don't have to conquer people to save them. Commander Xylos added his support. The coalition crews are already implementing the Unity protocol on their ships. For the first time in centuries, we're talking to each other instead of just taking orders from the Council. And if the war profiteers object? Kestar asked. Admiral Cortez answered with quiet confidence. Let them object. They can't fight a war when nobody wants to fight anymore. The transformation was happening throughout the assembled fleets. Ships that had been designed for destruction were being retrofitted for exploration and cooperation. Weapons systems were being converted into communication arrays. Warriors were becoming diplomats, scientists, and teachers. Dr. Chen initiated the final phase of the Unity Protocol, extending the quantum communication network beyond the solar system to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The effect was like watching stars light up across the universe as civilizations that had been isolated for centuries suddenly found themselves part of a vast, cooperative community. Status report, Admiral Vasquez requested. Unity Protocol is operating at full efficiency across 47 star systems, Chen reported. We're receiving cooperation requests from species that have never had contact with the Coalition or the Cathari Empire. War Prime Kestar made a decision that would reshape galactic history. All Cathari vessels stand down from combat operations. Initiate preservation protocols for voluntary cooperation rather than conquest. His tactical officer, crystals now bright gold with excitement, reported enthusiastically. War Prime, we're receiving technical specifications from 12 different species who want to contribute to the Unity Protocol expansion. Captain Webb materialized one final time on the bridge of the Quantum Serpent, but this time he was physically present, having been transported through Cathari quantum beam technology. War Prime, Webb said formally, on behalf of humanity, I'd like to request permission to establish the first Interspecies Cooperation Council. We have a lot to learn from each other. Kestar extended his crystalline hand in the human gesture of friendship that he had learned during their month of study. Captain Webb, on behalf of the Cathari Empire, I accept. But I have one condition. Name it. Humans must serve as the primary coordinators for this new council. Your species has demonstrated the ability to see solutions where others see only problems. The galaxy needs that perspective. Admiral Cortez appeared on the communication network one final time. All ships, this is Admiral Cortez. The war is over, not because anyone surrendered, but because we found something better than fighting. Engineer Rodriguez was already working on expanding the Unity Protocol to include automated exploration and terraforming systems. We could have new worlds ready for colonization within decades instead of centuries. Species could choose their own territories based on environmental compatibility rather than conquest. The possibilities seemed endless. Medical research that had been stalled by warfare could resume with cooperation from species across the galaxy. Technological development could accelerate exponentially when civilizations shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. Cultural exchange could enrich every society beyond imagination. War Prime Kestar stood on his bridge, watching former enemies work together with an efficiency that 800 years of warfare had never achieved. The Cathari archives would continue their preservation mission, but now they would preserve living, thriving civilizations instead of the remnants of destroyed ones. Dr. Chen, Kestar called across the quantum link, your Unity Protocol has accomplished something remarkable. You have made war obsolete. Dr. Chen's voice carried across space with quiet satisfaction. War was never the problem. War Prime. The problem was that nobody bothered to ask what everyone actually wanted. Turns out, most species just want to survive, learn, and grow. When you give them a way to do that cooperatively, fighting becomes unnecessary. As the human fleets began escorting their former enemies toward Earth for the first Interspecies Cooperation Council, Captain Webb reflected on the strangest month of his military career. Humanity had faced extinction and responded by making friends with their would-be destroyers. Admiral, Webb reported to Cortez, mission accomplished. Though I have to say, this wasn't exactly what I expected when I volunteered to be captured. Admiral Cortez laughed, the sound carrying clearly through quantum space. Captain, nothing about humanity is exactly what anyone expects. That's why this worked. The galaxy would never be the same. 800 years of warfare had ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. And at the center of it all, a species that had been spacefaring for less than a century had proven that sometimes the best way to win a war is to refuse to fight it in the first place. The Unity Protocol spread across the stars, carrying with it a simple but revolutionary message. Cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Understanding was more valuable than victory. And sometimes the newest voice in the conversation had the best ideas. Humanity had changed everything, just as they always did, by being impossibly, wonderfully human.